Hello, how are you, Robin? It is a pleasure to have you here. I'm very excited about this interview, I have to say.
Well, I was really excited when Genially contacted me. It is truly an honor to be here, so happy to be here.
We are very fascinated with your content, I have to say, too. So, you know that before this interview, I was watching one of your videos and I got fascinated with your background and how you became an instructional designer. I'm eager to know more about how did you start? How did you begin with this journey? And let's begin. So let's start. It wasn't at university, I guess, that you, or in a university that you get involved with all these instructional design, LMS, and start creating courses, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I think there's always been a thread of a love of learning from the beginning. I was one of those people that went to college just to follow my intellectual pursuits, which happen to be something that doesn't make any money, which is the study of Bible and theology and
Wow.
religion and world religions and biblical languages, right? It was just one of those things. Like, I loved that subject. I love learning. I followed that subject. And then, of course, it because I had degrees and a master's degree and a bachelor's degree in religion. The only job I could get outside of college was a part-time librarian at a university. And it was in that role that I was at the copier machine. And the dean of students said, "Hey, Robin, do you know anybody who wants to be an academic advisor?" And so, "Oh, what do they need?" And she said, "Oh, they only need a master's degree." "Does it matter what the master's degree is in?" She's like, "No." And I was like, "Oh, me." So I got that job as academic advisor at Shore University, and it was for the adult studies program. So it's still the university, but they had an annex campus in different locations for the adults that are at the university. And so from there, I became assistant dean of students. And then they needed to move their whole program online. It was pretty late adopters as far as moving their program online, because that started, I guess, in 2009, 2010.
Wow.
Yeah. And so they want to move their whole program online. Well, nobody wanted to do it or deal with the adjunct faculty that would go online, or translating the courses to an online modality, or setting up the learning management system, which was Moodle at the time. And I've always loved technology. And so I just took it. They gave it to me, and I just took it, and I loved it. And I knew that some things were changing in the university, even though I really liked being the assistant dean of students and I liked the culture of the university. I knew that because it was a Bible school, it was a Bible university, that they were going to start implementing some, what do we call them? Some codes of conduct for their employees. Like, they had already fired somebody because he was a homosexual, things like that. So I just saw the writing on the wall. And so it was kind of a combination. It was like, I knew that this wasn't really where I wanted to work anymore. I saw that their values weren't really aligning with mine. And then I also found instructional design. And I was like, I wonder if this is a job you can just do full time. And so that's when I started my digging. I found corporate instructional design. And, like, to my surprise, not only is it a full-time job, you get to work remote, and they pay you double what I was making at the university. So I
Wow.
did everything to make that transition.
It is very interesting because as an academic advisor, you understand that your students. You know what they need. So when you are creating the courses, I believe that you recall when a student sat down with you and explained, I don't know, what are their strengths and what they don't understand on a subject, I believe, right? I
Yes.
love my academic advisor, and I sat with them and I don't understand this course. I like this one. I prefer this one online. I don't know, when I was selecting my courses for next semester.
I loved it. I love being the assistant dean of students because of exactly those reasons, where you just get to be like people's problem solver and their therapist and their coach and, of course, their academic advisor. And you just have such a integral place in their academic life that it really is becomes quite a pleasure. And you get to know every single student, and then you walk in the halls and you're like, "Hey, is everybody
Hi.
doing okay?"
Oh, I miss school actually. I miss college.
It was actually while I was working at the university that I met who was the dean of the academic affairs. And she really inspired me to go and I was always going to get my PhD, but I didn't know what it was going to be in. And I didn't know how I was going to use it. And I didn't even know if that was still on my radar. But she had a successful career in corporate as like a business executive for the power industry and like the electricity, those kinds of things like power. And she did not come into academia till after she had made all her money in corporate. And then she got her PhD, and it was kind of like her retirement plan, doing the things that she loves as a retirement plan. I said, that's a great idea. I have found instructional design. I'm in love with it. I'm going to get my PhD, and this will be my retirement plan. I'll become a president of a university. That was my plan.
Wow.
I had no idea that I actually become president of my own alternative school.
Well, that's valid. You know that at first there is graphic design and there is instructional design, but what does an instructional designer do? What does your job consist of?
Yeah, so I mean, in like the short version is that we select, create, or modify materials and solutions that solve performance gaps. And so really it's our ability to identify those performance gaps, come up with solutions to those performance gaps, and solve performance gaps that include knowledge, skills, abilities, and sometimes attitudes. And so that's in summary what we do. And so that can encompass a whole lot of things. There's a whole lot of problems in the performance arena, depending on which company or culture that you're in. And then from there, okay, well, so there's a performance gap. What are all the range of solutions that we could do? Okay, now we have constraints on what can we use or modify or create, or is it just a job aid? Whatever that solution is, we come up with it. And a lot of times we also develop that solution and make sure that it works.
And I think that in corporate, there are some topics or I think steps or process that are complex to explain to employees. So I think that you need to understand first in order to start creating a course, I guess, or a material. It is
For sure.
wow. This is art actually. How long have you been working as an instructional designer?
I mean, formally, I would have to say, I would start my experience in 2012 when I landed my first full-time corporate instructional design job. But like I said, I mean, the thread has been there for a long time. I was an online instructional designer for the university for a couple of years. And even in college, I was the research facilitator. I was the teaching assistant. And, I've always kind of had some type of role that involved curriculum design.
Wow. So we can find instructional designers in academic institutions, in private companies, and freelancers too, right?
Yeah, government, nonprofit, any kind of industry you can think of in corporate. I think a lot of people think of corporate and they think cubicle work, right? You're in an office, but when I mention corporate, I'm talking about factories, manufacturing, like anything that makes a product or sells a service is corporate.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You'll find them everywhere.
Great news. So what is your working stack? What kind of tools and apps do you usually do on your daily work?
I think that answer for me is different than if you would have asked me, 6 years ago or 10 years ago or whatever, especially at this point, since a lot of my job is more, I'm a business owner and executive. And then I also, for our course design projects, I think you'd call me more of like a creative director. And so my tools are different than maybe the ones that I would recommend to those working in the field. I think that there is a difference, but at a high level, I would say that the tools that I use are pretty similar to what you use on the daily as an instructional designer in corporate. And when that is a project management tool, you got to have something like that. Even if you're alone doing the work by yourself, you have to keep track of all those tiny little tasks that are just inherent in our projects. Some kind of video editing tool. A popular one that we use in the industry is Camtasia. Some type of screen capture tool, which is another product from TechSmith, which is Snagit. And then some type of animation tool. And so for me and mine, I guess it's Vyond is our number one. It's also the thing that you see showing up in job descriptions, and then some type of e-learning authoring tool. And that's all based on use case. Do we want something quick and mobile friendly, and you can just throw it together really quickly?
Easy to navigate.
Yeah, easy to navigate. So you might think about a Rise 360. But if you want something like more fun and interactive, then I go for the Genially. I just rebuilt the Become an Idle Challenge for Idle courses, and we use Genially throughout the entire course. I'm rebuilding Academy 3.0 using Genially. What I really like, and I'm honestly not giving you a commercial. I'm a true fan. What I love about Genially is that, yes, Articulate Storyline can do some cool things. There's a lot of power in the triggers and the variables and things like that. But when you are building digital course products like we do at Idle Courses, you need something a little more nimble when you don't have a learning management system that hosts SCORM packages. And since all the LMSs that I'm looking at to sell digital course products and to run our trade school, they don't host SCORM. And so for me, Genially is great because it lives right in the middle. I know that you can publish to SCORM for Genially, but you can actually embed it in an iframe that looks really good. Now, I know you can do that with Articulate Storyline, but it's more clunky, and you've got to do more adjusting for like the player and the way that course works. Whereas with Genially, you can create a whole experience inside the course, and it's responsive, and it just lives in your course so nicely. And so that's another one of our tools. And then you have to have some type of tool to make all your learning materials. And for us, and for me especially, it's Canva. I mean, there's just not a faster thing to use to design all the different slideshows and materials and job aids and graphics and on and on. And so that's my main arsenal of tools.
Wow, that's amazing. One of the things that I like the most about Genially is exactly what you said and you mentioned. One is that it's easy user friendly, it's easy to navigate, and it's no code. So we, for example, had a webinar with EduFlow, that is an LMS platform, and you can integrate and embed, because Genially is an integration of EduFlow, and embed your Genially and your course. So it's actually very easy, and I found it fascinating. If I'm creating a course, of course.
Yeah.
So, in your opinion today, let's talk about challenge. What are the main challenge instructional designers face today?
Like, are we talking about new instructional designers, or are we talking about just like in general the world of instructional design, or what are we talking about? To just go any which way I want?
I would I would say in general.
In general?
Yeah, because there are a lot of people that are immersed in starting in this new journey of instructional design, and they just graduate, and they don't know how to start, how to begin, what kind of tool use, if they should start with gamification or start doing, I don't know, branching scenarios this is some of the common questions that I have heard.
Okay, so more for like the newbies then. More
Yeah.
for the newbies. What are the challenges for the newbies? I think and I think I'll just kind of answer the question about something that it's been on my mind, Chris, and that is that there's almost like a duality of what people think that instructional designers do. There's like what instructional designers think that they should be doing, and then there is the camp of people who hire instructional designers to do the work, what they expect them to be doing. And then there is the camp of new instructional designers that aren't sure what they should be doing, but they're hearing a couple of different things. And what I'm talking about and talking around is there are some experienced instructional designers who are not wrong, but they emphasize things like instructional design is not about the tools, it's about solving problems. And I agree with this, okay? But this is what it comes off like. And they say things like, it's not about the tools, it's not about whether you can make e-learning engaging or fun or pretty or whatever. It's about solving real problems and getting into being a performance consultant and those kinds of things, which like I said, I don't disagree with, but they emphasize that part of instructional design. And then you have the people who are actually hiring and paying the instructional designers. And what are they hiring and looking for? They're looking for somebody who can do from soup to nuts. They are looking for somebody that can, yes, solve the problem through instructional design by doing a thorough analysis and what is the performance gap here? Is it a knowledge, a skill, or an attitude gap? And then coming up with creative solutions, doing the research and on, but all the way to development. And to development, they not only want somebody who can come up with the solution, but that can design and develop something that looks professional, right? And so this is what I think a lot of the hiring managers are looking for, and what they might be frustrated to find when they either find one or they find the other. And I think that's kind of where the challenge is right now, is that we have hiring managers expecting people to be unicorns, good from A through E in the Addy model, if you will, right? They can go all the way from beginning to end. You have kind of these more experienced, I wouldn't say old school, but that is what I'm thinking. These old school instructional designers who say it's only about solving performance gaps. And then you have these newbies in here, they're like, well, which is it? And I think that's the biggest challenge, is just the fact that you hear a lot of different opinions about what it is. But I think that, to part of the answer to this challenge is to either inform hiring managers more about how you really want to hire people in their zone of genius. And not everybody who is an instructional designer includes the whole range of zone of genius that goes from analysis all the way to making things look pretty and working in like web-based content. That's a whole nother level of skills. And so that would help, right? If the hiring managers hire people in their zone of genius. And also, I think it would also be helpful for those who are new to the field to start getting a caterpillar of skills. And what I mean by that is getting a little bit of skills in all the things and keep working on all the things till you find what it is that you can drill down on and be good at, and make sure that you go and find work that lives in those zones. But really the truth about being competitive is that you got to be able to do all the things. I mean, in this marketplace, because that's what they're looking for. And I think that's a challenge.
People that can deliver what your client wants in a short period of time, right? And I believe that in corporate, it's understand what the needs, and understand the people that is going to take the course, or and read the material and play with that, I guess.
Yeah, it's about your learners and being able to do all the things, right? Being able to talk to your learners, analyze the problem, and then also make something look good that people actually want to engage with, that looks professional. And those are very different skill sets, and the hiring managers expect them to all be in one.
They're complex learners, I believe. So as time goes by, our ability to retain and pay attention has been falling. So how do you face the challenge of designing a training action that captures the attention and maintains the interest of participants? What kind of resource do you use to capture that attention?
I've heard some interesting things about that theory that we are losing our attention span, and I've seen other people say that that's more of a myth, and that it just seems like we don't have an attention span, but it's not actually accurate, because if you actually put something in front of somebody that they're interested in,
Of course.
then their attention span all of a sudden gets very large. And so it's not necessarily about attention spans, but it's more about the content and the need and the internal motivation that comes from that person. And so if you frame it and reframe it that way, it's not about, hey, over here, can I get your attention? It's more about like, what's in it for the learner? Have I given them a visual design that is credible, that they even want to interact with it? And then the third thing is that motivation comes from a feeling of mastery. We don't need to create courses that like go ding, 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 ding to create motivation. Instead, to create motivation, you give people practice opportunities, several practice opportunities that lead to a feeling of mastery. And that is what motivates people, not, gimmicks in a course. And I mean, even if we're talking about things like gamification, I think you might have a question about this, Chris, about gamification. Yep. You want to ask that question before I get into that part of engagement?
You can go.
Well, it's just, even in gamification, it's not about, okay, well, how can I engage people? Instead, if you really do the study of gamification, which I mean, it's like, I guess, a humble brag, but I happen to write my dissertation on it. But I just say that just to give you a little credibility, to let you know that like gamification is not about, you're going to automatically engage people. Instead, gamification only works if the content is sound and you know that it's already instructionally sound content, meaning that you know that this content without any gamification works, right? You've put this in front of learners and you know that they get enough practice opportunities, that the content is solid and it's factual, right? It's been reviewed by your subject matter experts, and they take it and they understand and they can apply it in the real world, right? That's how you know it's sound instructional content. It has to start with your content. And only if you know that your content is sound can you then add gamification, because gamification is actually it's a mediating variable, which means it doesn't directly impact the effectiveness of the learning. The only thing that it actually impacts is the behaviors of the learner. For instance, if you give somebody points for getting questions right, well, what are you, you're mediating in your variables. You're actually just mediating the variable of them. Okay, well, I am going to focus on answering questions and getting them right. And so it's the behavior of them answering questions and getting it right. That's all that you can influence with gamification. And so really you have to take gamification and you have to look at the behaviors that you want to influence with gamification. It has to align with instructional practices that we know are behaviors that lead to learning effectiveness. And so just adding gamification does not do a thing for you. Instead, you have to tie gamification to a behavior that we know leads to learning effectiveness. For example, we know that time on task increases learning effectiveness. The more time you spend studying something actively, well, the better you get at a thing, right? And so you might want to add points or whatever to the amount of time that somebody spends doing something like flashcards or taking practice activities or whatever else, right? Then you know that you are influencing the behavior of time on task, and that leads to learning effectiveness. And so you really, even in gamification, you can really just distract your learners and annoy them, or not really even influence any of the learning effectiveness if you do not specifically target gamification to behaviors that increase learning effectiveness. And so it really is about thinking about instructional alignment. Content is king. And then from there, you've got to think about the behaviors that we know through evidence-based practices give us effective learning materials.
It's like creating a roadmap. It's not just create a gamification material, but creating a roadmap and then create your gamification course with a purpose, right? It's not just create the game and deliver. It's just like, it's more than that. Of course, there is more complex it here, but I believe that you need to build like a storyline and motivates them not just to play it with the words or whatever you are creating at first, but beyond that.
Yeah, it is beyond that, right? It's not, because I even in my study, I just gave people points for, I'm trying to think, I gave points for lots of different things because I was like testing. It was like a qualitative study. But I gave them points for finding secret stars in the videos that I was having them watch. I gave them points for being able to find different things in the software and so on and so forth. And what I found is that points did not do anything except for increase time on task. It didn't make people necessarily get more things right. Yeah, it didn't necessarily mean that they were going to watch more videos than the person that didn't have those points on their videos. Instead, they just spent a little more time on it. So what I learned from that, right, is that the points weren't correlated with anything that was, effective, except for that they just spent more time on the task. But if I would have been strategic and how I applied points, okay, well, I really want them to take more self-assessments or whatever, then I would have added, more points and levels and given them some kind of reward for them to take more self-assessments, right? Or like unlock more of them and so on and so forth. So it really is thinking about the behavior that you want your learners to perform and not just slapping, the evil access of points, leaderboards, and badges. It's about driving specific behaviors. And so if you can think about it that way, then you can use gamification effectively.
Wow, this is impressive because you are always learning with the material you create and the behavior of your audience. Wow. So when creating courses, what are your thoughts on interactivity and animation? Are they useful resources to improve the engagement of the participants?
You know what? You're going to be like, Robin, you just keep answering the same way. And for me, it's the same thing again, that interactivity only becomes useful when you have sound content that's based on deliberate practice, right? If you are creating a course and you have never shown a full portrayal of how to do a thing to your students, you have not given them several practice opportunities of yes examples and not examples, then you have not created instruction. You're just handing out information. And so if your course is not structured in a way that, it activates prior learning, it gives a full demonstration, and then it gives them opportunities to apply what they've learned, then none of anything that you create matters anymore. It doesn't matter if you got animation. It doesn't matter if you have interactions, if they're not actually practicing the skills that they are set out to learn so that they can solve a whole problem by the end of the course. And so interactivity becomes really great and really useful when you design practice activities, and now you can actually use the interactivity to make those practice activities come to life, like in the scenarios or in the drag and drops, where you actually have them practice, sorting the recycling or whatever the example is that you want to use. But that is what is important. Interactivity only enhances if your content is sound.
Wow. So if we were designing a course right now, what ingredients should be the perfect recipe? What are the ingredients should be for the perfect course?
All right. The ingredients for a perfect course is, do you have a problem to solve? That's the first thing. Yeah, you have to have a problem to solve. And if you are not solving a problem, you're wasting time, money, and resources. So you have to have a problem to solve, because the problem should become the center of your course. It is what you wrap all of your instruction around, is about getting your student to be able to solve a whole problem or complex task, right? And so you have to have a problem. And then from that problem, you have to then decipher, okay, what is the whole problem? What's the whole enchilada, the whole shebang, right? And so, for example, you wouldn't just, randomly teach people how to use Microsoft Excel by showing them how to click all the features in the program, right? Instead, you got to have a real problem at the center of your course. No, we need people to be able to use Microsoft Excel so that they can create sales reports and track expenses for their bakery company or whatever, right? You have to have a real reason why you're going to train somebody on something. Otherwise, you're going to be boring them and you're going to be shoving information down their throats. Like the example of, oh, first you open the file and, oh, this button does this and this does. Nobody learns that way. All right. And so now that you have a real problem, then you have to create a full demonstration of what is it to be able to solve a whole problem on your own. So it would be, all right, so for the bakery soft, sheets example, like using Excel, then you'd want to create a full demonstration of what it means to track expenses, bold your headline, your headings in your sheet, use the functions of the sales and what kind of information are you putting in there, right? And so now you have a full demonstration. And from there, you can work backwards and include, all right, the activation of what it is that they have learned previously. So in the Excel example, you've probably had to input information to figure out, how things add up before, or you've probably clicked on a cell before, or whatever it is, right, that they've used that connects them to being able to use Excel for running their spreadsheets for their business. And then you would show a full demonstration. And from demonstrations, you need to give them applications. And those applications should be practice opportunities that add up to them to be able to run all the numbers for the business in Excel. And that's because they've had several different practice activities that add up to them being able to solve the whole problem. Just kind of like even in a university, they give you a final project and they give you milestones along the way where you are building assets that add up to a final project. And so that's the same kind of thing that you would do for the perfect course. You have a problem, you activate the learner's prior knowledge, you give a full demonstration, you give several applications all the way until they can apply the instruction to a whole problem themselves, and then they can integrate it out into the real world. Now, how do you deliver a course like that? If you've got those components, you've got a perfect course. You can deliver it in many different ways, right? We know that you can do instructor-led training, hybrid, e-learning, videos. There's lots of different ways, but the perfect course starts with the structure on what is at the center of your course. Your learner and the problem should be at the center.
And your book has amazing information about that.
I mean, I'm basically repeating my book.
Oh my God. So I think and I believe that you mentioned what you discover using Genially and what you like the most about Genially. But have you used Genially to design training actions lately?
Oh my gosh. Well, as we know, if you know about my book recipe, you know that it's way better to show than to tell. And so we are building from the ground up version of our entire trade school, the Idle Courses Academy. And so we're working on that in the background, and we are putting it on a gamified learning management system, and we are reimagining the entire trade school. And so part of that is actually building it on Genially. And I have some genius people that work with me. Genially genius, I guess that works out pretty well, doesn't it? And so I will just show a couple of samples that we got going on. So let me rewind here.
Okay.
What's so cool is, like, of course, you can all the things that you can put in there. A lot of things were built outside, of Genially to then just enhance what we can do. That's another thing that we just love about Genially, like all the cool things we can integrate into the software itself just to continue the experience. So then, create.
Oh my God, I love it.
Isn't it fun? And then we just let's go. And then so when learners come into the academy, this will be their first module, and then we'll start here. And then there's going to be a video. I don't know if I don't think the videos are embedded yet, because like I said, we're still working on this, but they can watch a video and then they can click through it. And it's just so cool how everything is interactive. It's easy to make it pretty clear what buttons that you're pushing as far as like how the hovers work in Genially. They work better than some of the other tools that you have where they don't necessarily it's not as easy to make a hover blow up like this. So that's just another way that makes it easier for our learners to navigate. And so I'll just go back to this one, and then we can go back to the map. And so find your why. I have another one I really
This
want to
is
show you too.
stunning.
Isn't this fun?
It
And so
has
you
a
can,
wow effect.
yes, and then you can, and we have like a team of, I think we're a team of 5 right now. And so we have a writer, we have
Like a
like
checklist.
a storyboarder, and we have our Genially developer, and we have our Beyond developer. And so here we've got checklists in here. And of course they can download them. And there's just a lot of really fun interactions that
Oh,
you can do in here. You can download things straight from Genially. So like you can see here, you can like find your why worksheets, and we can go back. So that's one. So that's like a map, and I could go to more things, but I really want to show you another one.
our community will love it.
Okay. So another one that we have here. Oh, I gotta rewind here.
Oh my god, I love that one. This is
Isn't it
inspiring.
cool?
You need to create templates to be reusable.
Well, this is all IP, right? So come in the academy if you want to experience it. But so like you can play this video, but like I said, the videos aren't embedded yet. And then so it's Tasneem, which is Mo Ash's wife, is actually our Genially developer on this
Oh
project.
my
And so
god, our Mo.
yeah, our Mo's wife, Tasneem. So she illustrated all of the like idle car, as we call it. And so then we just put all the cool interactions on top of it that Genially gives us the opportunity to do. And so we can make some pretty cool experiences in here. So now we're like on the Tesla dashboard here or whatever. And so you can go here and then we can click some things. I really want to show you
Yeah,
like the surprise and delight that comes through using Genially. So, all right, previous page. I don't need previous page. Blah, 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 blah. All right, back to map. I really want to get to the part that's fun. All right, that's fun and all. But is this where?
First frame.
Yeah, here it is. Where it comes up out of the visor.
Oh my god.
And so now you're really giving somebody like, a whole experience, and everything can be blown up. The things that you can do here in Genially. We also have, I think one of these buttons will open up. I don't want to give away the surprise because the whole fun part is the surprise and delight that you can create in Genially, which is really a lot of what gamification is, right?
Okay.
Is about including surprises and delights and keep people going, and there's a lot in it for people, to join the academy because they can become an instructional designer. So that motivation is already in there, but then you have to keep them, right?
No, no, it's amazing.
There it is. Okay, now we're taking them to the glove box, and we can pull up things. And just like the transitions that you can do in Genially, I bet you're probably noticing some of those. And so they just make for some really cool interactions. And it's more than a slideshow for us.
I love the checklist.
I think this is one where we can like move badges around. Yeah, I think I can move them around. Can I move them? Oh, she's going to make it. Oh, so you can click them. You can click them. Well, we did have it where we're going to move them around, but now you can click them and read about them. And you can go, oh, this is the one.
Oh my god.
Drag and click the badges. So drag it and click it. I don't know where the click goes. Honestly, I just, like I said, boop, boop, boop.
This is
fascinating. I don't think she's set up the click yet, but it's pretty cool. Like that you can do that, and you can download things from here. And so, ta-da! Those are the cool things that we're doing in Genially. We even have like more coming down the pipe. Like we've built, Tasneem has built an entire school. So that one's too much of a draft for me to show you, but I think it's pretty cool as far as like what I've already been able to show
I'm a
you.
big fan of you, and I love that work. It is amazing.
Isn't it cool?
I need to create some Geniallys like that. Really?
Yeah. And then we're putting inside a gamified platform. And so, they'll go through the Genially course. And then when they complete the lesson, they'll click a button. They'll say, I completed that, adds points to them. And then they'll we have actions that people have to take, right? They got to take action. Otherwise, they're not learning anything. And then they get points every time they complete actions and they click it off. And then it all adds up to them, winning prizes or qualifying for badges and things like that. So the whole project, I'm very excited about it.
And I'm excited too.
I'll show you around for some of the
Okay, oh my God, I love her too. So, in which way can Genially make life easier for instructional designer after watching this?
I mean, imagination is the limit. That's what's so cool about Genially. And imagination is the limit more in Genially than any other tool that we have found to use, especially for our purposes, because it's not as difficult to make what you imagine come to life. I mean, the fact that you just saw that we went inside the car and we opened up the visor, we opened up the thing, like usually you would have to build on a very complex platform like a Unity or something like that to make it so seamless. And that we were able to do something like that on Genially pretty quickly. Now, I'm not discounting the skills of Tasneem by any means. She definitely has skills that are beyond most of us. But the fact that your imagination is the limit, and you really do have all the tools that you need to be able to create something and then embed it so seamlessly into any type of a website, a page, just about anything online. And then you can also, download in all those other formats, even that are not online. Genially wins in those.
Thank you for that. So, you mentioned, I think that you are very involved in corporate training, and you mentioned some examples before. So, I believe that corporate environments have changed rapidly, and many companies are working or are now working in a hybrid way. So, what new challenge are instructional designers facing due to these changes?
Oh, that they're working, did you say in a hybrid way?
Hybrid, yeah.
Most of my people are remote, like 100%.
So it is not something like complicated today.
I think it is. I think there is complications in the sense that,
or maybe understand your client.
No, I'm with you. I think that there is a challenge, even in being 100% remote, that I think there's more of a challenge being 100% remote than doing a hybrid role. Because a hybrid role, you get FaceTime. You can like grab them by their shirt collar and be like, "Can you please give me that feedback right now?" You know what I mean? Like you can, I'm in your face. I'm here. You can't like just ignore my chat on Slack or whatever. You can't ignore my email. I am right here, and you have to deal with my physical aura. I think that is kind of a benefit to hybrid workers. That is really a challenge for those that are 100% remote, because now that more and more people are 100% remote, and especially instructional designers, and I think that all the ways that we use to communicate remotely, especially things like Slack and email and project management tools and all those kind of stuff, it becomes noise.
Yeah.
Kind of like
I'm with you.
Social media, and it just becomes a lot and pretty stressful. And so there's a couple of ways that we deal with stress. One is to just get anxious and respond to all the influx, which of course is only going to add to your stress. The other thing is, it's to just bury your head and just ignore it. And so you can imagine the kinds of challenges that come with both of those situations, which are people are either ignoring you on projects all the time, like your subject matter experts or your team members or something like that, because it's just a lot of ding, 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 dings. They don't even know how to prioritize, or they just ignore, or they just put off because they're just, it's just a lot. Or you get the people who are stressed out and don't know how to prioritize because they are always in responsive mode to all the things that are coming in through the Slack channels and the Asanas and the whatever else dings at us and gives us notifications like email. And I think that's part of the challenge, because we run a staffing agency called Idle Talent. And a lot of the issues that I hear, from my contractors I think has a lot to do with being 100% remote. They can't get in front of their subject matter experts. Their subject matter experts, they are, this is not their full-time job is to be a SME. And of course that's true across the board, whether you're working full-time in person or hybrid or remote. But, it's like if you don't see it, you can forget it. I know there's an idiom for that, but it's just escaping me or
That's true.
whatever. Like if you don't see it, you don't think about it. But that's pretty much how remote workers become. They become you don't see them, you don't think about them, and you can put off that dinging or that feedback till later. What are they going to do? What are they going to do? Send you another Slack message, and nobody's scared of that anymore. And so I think that's probably the biggest challenge for people is trying to get attention, get collaboration. And then there's like the other side of it too is like, but meetings don't really help either. Like these online meetings that we have all the time, a lot of them end up being time wasters. And so I'm not giving the solution to the challenge. I'm just pointing it out.
Thank you, Robin. This has been amazing. Amazing. I know that there are a lot of people of our community that are a big fan of you, and they say that you have to interview Robin. We love Robin, and they have read your book. So we were like very interested to meeting you and to have you here. But I have a last question. So
Okay.
if you can mention 3 new trends to watch or pay attention to in business training, what would you say or what would you mention?
Okay. The 3 things to pay attention to.
3 new
I think
trends or pay attention or what they need to watch.
I think there's an interesting trend in a lot of course creation platforms that involve getting the subject matter experts and other employees involved in creation of the training materials.
Okay.
And while, many hands make light work, sometimes many hands also just make a terrible soup, right? Too many cooks in the kitchen. And so I think that there is some conversation around, should subject matter experts, or I'm just going to say SMEs from now on, should SMEs be creating courses just because they have the subject matter expertise? Is there room for instructional designers? If we have all these other people that can just make the courses themselves with these easy drag and drop things, and the answer is they still need an instructional designer, and they still need an instructional designer that is familiar with the actual practice of instructional design and not information dumps. And that is like what we talked about, like building the perfect course, right? And so I think that's something to watch out for, is to not let your stakeholders get all giddy about just churning out training faster because now all the subject matter experts can do it. Because what you'll have is just a big old content dump that is not meaningful for anyone and is not structured. They're going subject matter experts, by very nature of being a SME, they are going to miss important steps because they are an expert. I mean, try to go back to teach a freshman on something that you've been doing for years. You're going to miss things. So that's one of the things to watch for. I think the other thing to watch for is something that, we kind of talked about earlier, which is that that dichotomy between like, you should only be a performance consultant, or you need to be able to do all the things to be able to get hired, or maybe living in your zone of genius. So I think really it's about watching that type of, watching out for that. And I think that the best way that you can take care of yourself in your career and on down the future is to have a little bit of skills in all the things that we do. Just be familiar enough, but really find what is your own zone of genius and stick with projects and roles that, drill down on what it is that you do really well. If it's making Beyond videos, so be it. And then that's what you do. If it's developing e-learning, fine. If it's writing instruction, fine. Get really good at that. Be the best at it, that kind of thing. And that will help guard you against this this push and pull that we see kind of going on about what is an instructional designer. Well, really, you should be familiar with all the things, but go ahead and drill down and get niche on what it is that you're really good at, because that will, I think that the hiring managers are going to keep hiring people that are supposed to be unicorns. And what they're going to find out is that they don't meet their expectations in several different areas, and that they should get back to the place where they hire people who are the best at each part of what it is that we do. But in the meantime, I think they're going to keep hiring unicorns. So go ahead and learn a little bit of everything. And then the third thing that I think that people should keep their eyes out for and really just be aware of is that the training and the performance gaps that you are solving today will not be the same ones that you have to solve down the line. And what I mean by that is that the workforce itself is changing, industry is changing. We don't even know what kind of jobs are going to be in the future in 5 years. And I just mean, that it's that jobs are being just not retired, but
Things
they're
are
just
changing so fast.
extinct. Extinct is the word. They're being replaced, and it's more about people being knowledge workers. And as an instructional designer, you're a knowledge worker, which means that you can be self-driven, independent, and you can solve problems and do your own research, and you can be self-motivated. And I think that that's going to be an interesting thing for us, is to create training for a workforce that keeps on changing with new roles that we can't even predict at this point. Not to mention that there's also a skills gap for the existing roles that we do have. And so I think that other thing to watch out for might influence the way that you design instruction, but really it's also a thing to reinforce that our growth rate of instructional design is not going anywhere. We still have to solve a skills gap for existing roles, and then we have roles that are coming down the line very soon in the near future. We don't even know what they are. And then the fact that industry keeps changing at a moment's notice, we saw that, and we believe it now that we went through the pandemic, about how a world can change in just a few moments. I think that it means that that our industry is growing. There's always going to be a need for instructional designers, and that you're also going to need to keep in mind about how can you create your training and your solutions to be more holistic and agile, that can keep upskilling people in a way that doesn't require you to build necessarily a 3-month-long course, because it can take that long to build one course. And like, how can we move? And I know that Dr. Nicole Papiano talks a lot about social learning networks, and that's actually really what the Idle Courses Academy kind of ended up being, is a social learning network. And those things are pretty cool because you can curate resources. And then in a sense, it is the SMEs and the peers and the coworkers and the people that have been doing the work that are all talking together at the same time, but they have curated content and it can keep getting updated, but but it's structured in a way that makes learning happen. It's centered around, specific artifacts or skills or whatever. And so those are the things I look out for.
This is amazing. Thank you, Robin. I have to say that you are an amazing woman. We love your work. We are you have done an impeccable work with your book as well. And thank you very much for this interview, for being with us today, for sharing your work with us. And as I said, our community love you, and we love you us too.
Oh, well, I love you guys too. I sure do love idols. I mean, I don't, any instructional designer or e-learning developer, those are my people. And so it's really an honor to be here and be able to share.
I like that community of instructional designers. They like each other, and they start suggesting and other people. You're like a very close community. I love that.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm a
think
random field, but I think that instructional designer or this IT's community is totally different than marketing and other communities or fields.
I think it's because we all have hearts of a teacher.
Maybe. That's very interesting. Once again, thank you, Robin, for this interview. I hope to see you soon another interview or in another panel or in another, maybe in another round table. So
I'd love to come show you what we like, some of the coolest things that we build when the Academy 3.0
yeah,
comes.
yeah. Please, we're gonna share your website and the website to your academy, of course.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you can get in. Thank you very much, Robin.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Genially.